Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I am genuinely glad you are here today because, to be honest, I think we all need a bit of a sanity check.
Oh, definitely.
If you have been online at all in the last, I don't know, 2 years, you've seen it.
It's unavoidable at this point.
It really is. You scroll through social media or you look at the comments section on any history video, or maybe you've even walked past those groups on street corners in major cities.
The guys with the
The
megaphone.
guys with the megaphones and the elaborate charts. We are talking about identity,
Mm,
but not just who am I. We're talking about ancient identity,
right,
specifically the origins of Israelite identity.
right.
And it is heated.
Heated is putting it mildly. It is a battlefield.
It is.
And what's fascinating, or maybe a little scary, is that this isn't just an academic debate happening in dusty university basements. This is happening in public square. It's visceral.
Exactly. And the confusion is just palpable. You have these massive questions floating around that people are genuinely willing to fight over.
Oh, yeah.
Who is Israel? Is it a genetic club? Is it a race? Is it a spiritual idea? And lately, there's been this incredibly intense focus on racial exclusivity.
Hmm.
Specifically, we're seeing arguments coming from certain Black Hebrew Israelite groups and others adjacent to that way of thinking, claiming that the ancient Israelites were exclusively Black.
And that any other claim is, what, a lie?
A theft?
A fabrication or a theft of identity?
Right.
Okay.
It's where modern identity politics crashes head-on into ancient history.
And usually when those two collide,
History is the one that gets run over.
that is unfortunately true. So our mission today is to try and, rescue history from the middle of the road.
A noble goal.
And we're doing what we always do. We aren't here to pick a political team. We aren't here to shout or tell you who to vote for. We are here to look at the text.
Just the source material.
We have a fascinating source today titled Abraham and the Genesis of Covenantal Identity.
And I have to say, having read through this, it's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
This text doesn't pull any punches.
It really doesn't. It's blunt. It is. It takes what I would call a hardline historical and scriptural approach. The author isn't interested in modern feelings or 21st century American racial politics. They are interested in the map provided by the text itself.
Okay.
And the mission of this deep dive is to follow that map back to the very beginning, to Abraham, to see if these modern racial categories actually hold up against the ancient geographical realities.
So the premise here is that if you want to know who Israel is, you can't look at a crowd of people.
No.
You have to look at one guy.
That's the core thesis, the one-man premise. To understand Israel, you cannot look at tribes or kings or huge populations first.
Correct.
You must look at one specific man in the ancient Near East.
Okay, let's unpack this, because usually when we talk about a nation, we're thinking about a population, a
Yeah.
group of people who share a language or a border.
The favorite food, yeah.
But this source argues that Israel is different. It says, and I love this phrase, Israel is personal before it is plural.
It's a profound distinction, and one that I think most people miss when they talk about this. The source argues that Israel originates as a covenantal reality constituted in a single man.
A covenantal reality.
Think about how nations usually form.
Like organically, over time.
Right. Think about, say, the French or the Japanese or the Egyptians. Usually you have a group of people living in a specific area, a river valley, an island. Over hundreds of years, they develop a shared culture, a language, and eventually they draw a border around themselves and say, we are a nation. It's bottom up.
The people exist first, then the nation label is applied.
Exactly. You don't get France without a bunch of people living in Gaul for centuries first.
Yeah, right.
But the source argues that with Israel, God does the exact opposite. It's a completely different mechanism.
No, so.
God doesn't go out and find a pre-existing group of people, say a tribe wandering in the desert, and say, okay, you guys look good, you are now Israel.
He doesn't adopt a nation.
No. The text says, he will make Abraham into a nation. He is building it from scratch, starting with one individual. It's a top-down construction project.
So Israel isn't a group that was found. It's a nation that was built from one person.
Precisely. And the source emphasizes that the naming, the distribution of land, the administration, the laws, the culture, all of that comes later. It's all downstream.
So the identity is established first in one man.
The structure of biblical identity is top-down. It flows from Abraham down to the rest, not the other way around.
Okay, I see the distinction, but I want to push on this a bit for the listener who might be thinking, okay, that's a nice theological point. Why does it matter for the racial debate?
Sure.
Why is this distinction the key to everything?
It matters because of the container of identity. It's about your starting point.
Okay.
If you start your analysis with the tribes, the many, the millions, it's very easy to project our modern ideas onto them.
How do you mean?
You look at a large group and you start thinking in terms of demographics. You look at a crowd and think, what do they look like? What is their racial bloc?
You can just imagine anything.
It's easy to project a fantasy onto a faceless crowd. You can paint that crowd whatever color you want.
Right.
But if you start with Abraham, the one, you are constrained. You are locked in by his specific history.
You can't just make him whatever you want him to be.
No. He is a specific man in a specific place at a specific time.
You're dealing with a biography, not a demographic study.
You are locked in. And whatever Israel becomes later, whatever the multitude looks like, it has to be consistent with who Abraham was.
You can't disconnect the fruit from the root.
That's the argument. The source is very firm on that point.
Okay, so if we are locked in, we need to look at the data points we have for this one man.
We do.
And this is where it gets really interesting for me because I feel like people treat biblical geography like it's Narnia. Like it's just this vague Bible land where everyone walks around in robes and nothing has a zip code.
Right, somewhere east of Eden, just a vague, dusty backdrop.
Exactly. But the source says, no, we have a trajectory. We have GPS coordinates, essentially.
We do. And this brings us to the second major section of our analysis, geography as the primary filter.
The map of Abraham.
The map of Abraham. The source argues that before we can even begin to talk about race, we have to talk about place. And the text traces Abraham's movement very clearly.
So walk us through the itinerary. Where does this man actually live?
Okay, so he starts in Ur of the Chaldeans.
Okay.
He moves from there to Haran. And finally, he arrives in Canaan.
Okay, let's place those pins on the map because I think visualizing this is crucial. Pin number 1, Ur.
Ur is in ancient Mesopotamia. Historically and archaeologically, this is associated with southern Iraq, right down near the Persian Gulf.
So we're in Iraq.
We're in modern-day Iraq.
Yeah.
Think about the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, that delta area. This is a real known place.
Okay, so we are starting in southern Iraq. Pin number 2, Haran.
Haran is way up north. It's near the modern border of Turkey and Syria. So he travels up the Euphrates River Valley.
Following the water.
He's effectively following the Fertile Crescent.
And then pin number 3, Canaan.
Canaan is the Levant. It's the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea.
So modern-day Israel, Palestine.
Modern-day Israel, the West Bank, Gaza, Lebanon, parts of Jordan, that whole coastal strip.
So looking at that map,
Mm-hmm.
he's basically making a big arc, a huge loop around the Arabian desert.
It is firmly West Asian. It is Near Eastern. It is the Levantine Mediterranean world.
Right.
And the source makes a very strong point here. This context aligns with the populations that formed what scholars call the ancient Eastern Mediterranean belt.
And more importantly, the source tells us what this region is not.
Yes.
Because defining what something is helps, but in this debate, defining what it isn't seems just as important.
It's critical. And this is the first boundary the source establishes. It explicitly states that Abraham does not come from sub-Saharan Africa. And just to be balanced and fair to everyone, he does not come from Northern Europe either.
So no Vikings and no Zulus.
Exactly. No disrespect to either group, but there is no historical, archaeological, or linguistic evidence that places Abraham outside of this specific West Asian zone.
He's not a Celt.
He is not a Celt. He's not a Bantu. The source is clear. He is a Semite of the Near East.
This brings us to what the source calls the first boundary. Because if we agree that Israel starts with Abraham, and we agree on where Abraham is from,
then that naturally limits what we can say about him.
it limits what we can say about his race, doesn't it?
It sets a hard boundary. The source argues that Israel cannot be racially exclusive to Africa simply because the progenitor, the father of the nation, was not African.
And I want to be careful here, because the source, and I really appreciate this about the text, makes a really important distinction.
Yes, this is crucial.
It's not saying Africans aren't in the Bible. It's not erasing anyone.
Not at all. And that's a crucial nuance we have to land on. The source explicitly states this does not deny the presence of Africans in biblical history.
Of course not.
We know there are interactions with Egypt, which is North African. We know about Kush, which is modern Sudan. We know about Ethiopia. The Bible is full of interactions with these groups.
And it doesn't deny the ability of Africans to become Israelites.
Right. Through conversion, through the mixed multitude that left Egypt, through intermarriage over centuries. But the source is focusing on the origins. It's about the root of the tree.
It's about exclusivity.
Exactly. It denies the racial monopoly. It denies the idea that Israel is only black or inherently African in its root.
I see.
The source says any claim that contradicts the geographical reality of Abraham fails at the starting point. You can't claim the tree is an apple tree if the seed was an orange seed.
This leads us directly into the most controversial part of the text.
Yeah.
We have to talk about the black Hebrew Israelite ideologies. And again, for the listener, we are analyzing the source's counter-argument to these claims. We aren't attacking people. We are analyzing an argument.
A critical distinction. We're looking at the logic of the source.
The source directly engages with ideologies that claim a racial monopoly on Israel. The idea that the true Israelites must be black and, conversely, cannot be white.
And the source argues that these claims collapse, but not because the politics are wrong or because of modern feelings.
But why then?
It says they collapse because of Abraham.
The one-man premise again.
It's always back to Abraham. But it introduces a concept that I think is incredibly helpful for anyone trying to understand history. The source argues that these racial claims collapse because they are anachronistic.
Anachronistic, that's a $10 word. I feel like we need to pause and really define that for everyone.
Sure, an anachronism is when you take something from one time period and try to stick it into another where it doesn't belong. It's like watching a movie about ancient Rome and seeing Julius Caesar check his text messages on an iPhone. It doesn't fit. The technology is from the wrong era.
Or like asking George Washington what he thinks about cryptocurrency.
Exactly. The categories don't exist yet. The source is arguing that modern racial categories, this binary idea of black versus white that dominates American discourse, are being imposed backward onto a world where they simply didn't exist in that way.
So Abraham isn't walking around the desert worrying about checking a box on a census form.
Exactly. He isn't thinking, am I black or am I white? He is thinking, I am a Hebrew from living in Canaan.
Right.
But it goes deeper than just he didn't think about it. The source introduces this concept of being ancestral upstream.
I loved this analogy.
Yeah.
This was the aha moment for me reading the text. Walk us through the upstream concept.
Okay, visualize a river. Imagine a river that starts at the top of a mountain. That's the source.
Got it.
As that river flows down, it eventually forks into many different streams at the bottom of the mountain. Maybe some streams go east, some go west.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Abraham is at the top of the mountain. He is the source water. He belongs to a population zone that is ancestrally upstream of multiple modern groups.
So he's the grandfather of different groups that look different today.
Precisely. The source text says that Abraham's population group is ancestral to modern Levantines people in Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, but also to Arabians and even to portions of Southern European populations. He predates the split.
So he exists before the categories separated.
Right. So trying to force him into a modern black or white box is historically incoherent because his DNA doesn't map cleanly onto that binary.
It's like looking at a wolf, an ancient wolf, and having two people argue over it. One says, that's a golden retriever. And the other says, no, that's clearly a poodle.
That is a fantastic analogy, yes.
Yeah.
It's neither. It's the ancestor of both.
Yeah.
The wolf contains the genetic potential for both the poodle and the retriever, but it is its own distinct thing. Abraham is the ancient Near Eastern wolf, if you will.
He predates the modern categories we are fighting over.
That's the core of the source's argument on race.
That puts the online debates in a totally different light.
Yeah.
It's not just that the people shouting are wrong. It's that the question they are asking makes no sense.
They're asking the wrong question.
They are asking a wolf which dog breed it belongs to.
Exactly. And because they're asking the wrong question, they are coming up with distorted answers.
So if we accept that Abraham is this upstream figure from the Near East, what about the visual aspect? I think that's what people really get hung up on.
Oh, absolutely.
And they want to know what he looked like.
Of course. We live in a visual culture. We want a picture.
We do. And the source points out something I had never really thought about, even though I've read these texts 100 times. The silence of Scripture.
This is one of those points that makes you stop and say, wait, really? You scramble to check your Bible?
I did.
The source highlights that the Bible never defines Israel by skin tone. It never mentions eye color, hair texture, or bodily markers as a definition of who Israel is.
Which is strange, right? Because in modern storytelling, that's the first thing you do. You describe the character. He was a tall man with piercing blue eyes. Or she had dark, radiant skin.
Even in ancient literature, you often get descriptions of heroes, swift-footed Achilles or something like that. But with the patriarchs of Israel regarding their race or phenotype, Silence.
Why? Is it just an oversight? Do they just forget?
The source argues this silence is intentional. It's not that the writers forgot to mention it, it's that it is irrelevant to the definition of the people.
It prevents racial gatekeeping.
Yes, that's the phrase the source uses. Identity in the Bible is covenantal. It's based on an agreement, a promise, a relationship with God.
And not phenotypic.
It is not phenotypic. It's not based on physical appearance.
Link down that word phenotypic for us quickly.
Phenotype is just the observable physical characteristics of an organism. Your skin color, your eye shape, your hair type, all the things we see.
So the source is saying God did not build a nation based on a phenotype.
He built it based on a covenant.
If the Bible defined Israel by skin color, then you can look at someone and say, you don't look like an Israelite, so you can't be in the covenant.
Precisely. You could have a bouncer at the door of the covenant, but because it's based on a promise, the look doesn't matter. The barrier to entry is faith and adherence to the law, not a DNA test or a paper bag test.
And the source warns against what it calls flattening Israel. This goes back to the tribes versus the man.
Right. The source argues that racial arguments often take the 12 tribes, this large group of people, and treat them as a racial bloc.
A monolith.
They flatten the history into a monolith, like they all looked exactly the same for 1,000 years.
Which is not how populations work.
Yeah. Not at all. The scripture moves from one to many. The tribes are just the distribution of what was already present in Abraham. And over centuries, that distribution picks up other genetics.
Right.
You have the mixed multitude from Egypt. You have Rahab the Canaanite. You have Ruth the Moabite. The gene pool expands and diversifies.
So if you're focusing on the racial look of the tribes, you're focusing on the wrong end of the telescope. You're looking at the outcome, not the source.
Exactly. And the source implies that later figures, Moses, David, even Jesus, have to be viewed through this Abrahamic framework.
Let's touch on that, because mentioning Jesus usually makes people sit up straight.
Of course.
The source says theology shouldn't be collapsed into biology. What does that mean for Jesus?
It means Jesus is significant because of covenantal entry, not just genetic derivation. Obviously, the lineage matters in Scripture. The son of David aspect is crucial.
Sure.
But the source is saying that Israel is the vessel for this divine identity. It's not that the DNA itself is the magic. The magic is the promise made to Abraham.
I see.
If you make it all about biology, if you say, Jesus is the savior because he had this specific skin color, you miss the entire point of the mission.
You're turning a theological icon into a racial mascot.
That's a powerful way to put it, yes. And the source rejects that entirely.
Now, we need to address another specific claim in the source, and this one might surprise people, considering the current cultural climate where we often talk about whiteness as the antagonist in these narratives.
It's a tricky subject.
We talked about the black claim, but the source also addresses the white or Mediterranean connection.
It does, and it does so quite boldly. The text states plainly that Abraham's Near Eastern origin overlaps with populations today classified as Mediterranean or Middle Eastern white.
Now, hold on. I can hear the brakes screeching for some listeners.
I'm sure.
We need to be very clear, hyper-specific about what the source is saying here. Is it claiming Abraham was a white guy from the suburbs?
No, and the source text makes that clarification immediately. It says this does not mean Abraham was white in the modern American or Northern European sense.
Okay.
We aren't talking about Scandinavian genetics here. He wasn't walking around looking like a Viking or an Anglo-Saxon.
Right. No blonde hair, no sunburns in the desert.
But, and this is the key, it means his region is ancestrally connected to people who are categorized as white today. Think about people from southern Italy, Greece, the Levant, parts of Turkey, Cyprus.
People who, if they filled out a census in the U.S. today, would probably check white.
Exactly, or white Middle Eastern. The point is, there is a genetic bridge there.
I see.
The Mediterranean Sea wasn't a wall, it was a highway. Populations moved back and forth for millennia.
So the source is refuting the negative. It's refuting the idea that Israel cannot be white.
Exactly. The argument from the BHI side is often a binary. Israel must be black, therefore it cannot be white.
Right.
The source says that claim is historically incoherent. Why? Because the very region Abraham comes from, the Levant and Mesopotamia, is a region that has contributed to the populations we call white today.
So saying Israel can't be white is ignoring the actual genetics of the Middle East.
Correct. It denies the reality of the Mediterranean basin. It denies that Abraham sits in that middle ground, that middle earth of genetics, that feeds into both the darker-skinned populations of Arabia and North Africa and the lighter-skinned populations of Southern Europe.
He's the next nexus point.
He is. He's upstream of all of it.
And again, to bring it back to inclusion, the source isn't saying, therefore Israel is white and exclude everyone else.
No, never. It emphasizes that this doesn't deny the presence of Africans. It doesn't deny the diversity of the ancient world.
It denies exclusivity.
What it denies is exclusivity. It denies the political claim that Israel is only black.
It feels like the source is constantly trying to pull us back to the center. It's saying, stop trying to make this exclusive to one modern group.
It's trying to restore order. That's the phrase used in the synthesis section. Restoring order.
Let's recap that order, because we've covered a lot of ground, from to the genetics of wolves.
Yeah, we have.
What are the 4 main facts the source wants us to walk away with? If we had to put this on a Post-it note, what does it say?
Okay, if we boil it down. Fact number 1. Israel begins with Abraham. Not a tribe, but a man. The singularity.
But 1. Right.
Fact number 2. Abraham is West Asian. Geography matters. You have to start with the map.
Okay.
Fact number 3. Israel unfolds in the Levant. That is the stage where the story happens.
The stage.
And fact number 4. Covenant is primary. Race is not. The why is more important than the what he looked like.
It seems so simple when you list it like that.
It is simple, but it's hard for us to accept because we are so conditioned to see everything through a racial lens. The source actually critiques what it calls speculative anthropology.
Speculative anthropology. I like that term. Is that a polite way of saying making stuff up?
Essentially, it refers to symbolic overreading. You know the type.
Give me an example.
Finding a verse in Lamentations that says someone's skin was black like an oven because of famine, and interpreting that to mean their natural skin tone was black.
Rather than, well, dirty and burned from famine.
Exactly, or soot-covered. It's taking poetry and trying to turn it into forensics.
I see.
The source argues you don't need all that speculation. You don't need to twist verses. You only need to let Abraham stand where the text places him.
And when you do that,
the source says racial absolutism dissolves under the weight of truth. You realize that the modern fight is about categories that just didn't apply to Abraham.
It's like we're fighting over who owns the rights to a song, and it turns out the song is in the public domain.
Or that the song was written before copyright laws even existed.
Right.
We are fighting a legal battle in a court that doesn't have jurisdiction over the Bronze Age.
That is a perfect way to put it. So what does this all mean for us, for the listener who is just trying to make sense of the world?
I think the big takeaway here, the mission we talked about at the start, is about humility in the face of history. We started looking for the identity of Israel. We wanted to know if they were black or white.
And we found out that the question itself is kind of flawed.
The question is flawed. We found that Israel is rooted in a specific geography, the Near East, and a specific covenant. It's not rooted in a modern color palette.
And the lesson seems to be, for anyone interested in this topic,
whether you are interested in theology or history or just the identity politics aspect of this, the lesson is pretty clear. Projecting our modern categories onto ancient figures usually leads to error.
It distorts the text.
It does. It distorts the text and it distorts history. We want the ancients to be mirrors of ourselves.
We do.
We want to look at Abraham and see us. We want to say, look, he looks like me, therefore I am important.
It's a validation thing.
It is.
Yeah.
But the source is saying, no, look at Abraham and see Abraham. See him for who he was, where he was, and what he was doing.
His importance wasn't physical.
His importance didn't come from his melanin count. It came from his willingness to listen to a voice that told him to leave everything behind.
Which brings us to a final thought, and this is something I've been mulling over since I read the source material. The source suggests that Israel was designed to be a covenantal reality.
Right.
If identity is defined by a promise, a verbal agreement between a man and God, rather than by DNA,
Yeah.
does that make our modern obsession with the genetics of ancient figures the ultimate misunderstanding of the text's intent?
That is the question, isn't it?
I mean, really.
If the text goes out of its way to ignore physical descriptions, if it actively silences the phenotypic details, and we spend all our time fighting over those exact details, are we even reading the same book?
Are we missing the forest for the trees, or the covenant for the chromosomes?
I think we might be. We are looking for a 23andMe result, and the text is offering a contract.
And the contract is the whole point.
And frankly, the contract is the more interesting part.
Wow, that is a lot to think about. We want to thank you for taking this deep dive into the ancient Near East with us.
It's a heavy topic.
It's complex, it's controversial, and I know it could be uncomfortable to have these assumptions challenged. But hopefully we've shed a little light on the actual text behind the debates.
Always a pleasure to dig into the sources.
And to you listening, we invite you to question your own assumptions about historical identity. Next time you see a meme about who the real Israelites were, maybe just remember the map of Abraham.
Remember the wolf and the dogs.
Remember the wolf and the dogs. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next Deep Dive.